everyone! Last week we talked about one of the main characteristics of leadership, and we talked about how leaders are capable of making decisions. So, for this week, I thought of continuing on this theme and talk about another very important characteristics that leaders exhibit, and that is they are capable of providing feedback. Yeah, this is a controversial one, isn't it? Feedback, receiving feedback, providing feedback. I don't know which one of the two is the hardest. For everyone, it's probably different. But hey, I know that the topic of feedback is a hard one for a lot of people. Okay. So let me start with something that is very important to me as a global leader, as an expat in multiple countries. I want to first of all explain that there is a cultural context around the way you provide feedback. In the United States, one of the most common techniques to provide feedback is the famous sandwich technique. What that means is you say something that the person did nice, good, there is something that needs improvement, and then you close with something else that they did nice. So the constructive feedback is sandwiched between two pieces of good feedback. It is super common in the US, so if you are a foreigner living in the United States, be ready for it. Sooner or later, someone will use the sandwich technique to provide some feedback. As I was saying before, though, there is a cultural background around this, a cultural context that for everyone out there that is listening to this and they are managing global teams, be very, very careful. For how much the sandwich technique is common and widespread here in the United States, in other cultures can be perceived as very, very fake. And the reason why people feel it fake and hypocritical is because, hold on a second, are you giving me good feedback or are you giving me constructive feedback? Okay, so while here in the US, that's considered a nice way to sugarcoat it, in other culture is perceived as really, really detrimental in the way feedback is provided. Okay? And this is just to give a little bit of cultural context. Okay, so if the sandwich technique doesn't work all the time, what are the key elements around providing feedback? So I would say, first of all, do not ever tell a person they are in a certain way, but always tell them that in a certain situation they acted in a certain way, and because of that, they have generated certain consequences. I'll give you an example. Joey, you are always late, and I cannot tolerate this anymore. Versus, Joey, last week I was really waiting for you and for the data that I asked you. The fact that the data wasn't provided on time has generated me not to be able to make this decision, which impacted how I communicated to my leader about the emergency that we were facing. Something like that. Of course, the second way of providing feedback, it's much more constructive than the first one. It inherently says that in that specific moment, someone did a mistake and they can grow out of it, versus just labeling them as the people that are always late, right? Which, by the way, also means is not said, but it could also be perceived as, I don't believe you can ever change that, which is not true. People can grow, people can change. It takes effort, and not everyone wants to do that and put in all of that effort. But yes, people can change and grow. Okay, so first of all, it's about the situation, and the event is not about the person. The second thing that is really, really important is that the feedback is timely. And why is it so important? Well, first of all, because the events are fresher in your mind and in the person that you're providing the feedback to, but also because it doesn't help being specific if you're starting to pile on. Like, and you were late in week 12, and you were late in week 25, and you were late in week 27, and look, it's all year that you have been late, right? I mean, that doesn't show that you think that is intrinsically of a situation, but you are making it much more about the person, even if maybe your language is not. And you are taking away from that person the chance to get better in time. So timely is also very, very important. So I would say these are my two main pieces of advice as you approach the topic of providing feedback. As a leader, it's your duty to provide feedback. I'm gonna tell you this, and it's gonna be strong. If you never provide constructive feedback, you are not really a leader. Your team deserves to hear your feedback. That's the best way you help them grow. It is actually an incredible characteristics of servant leadership. If you really want to serve your team, you want them to grow. And what is the best way to help them grow? That providing them feedback, especially the constructive one, because let's be honest, we learn more as human beings from the mistakes than the things that go really, really well. So once again, in order to be able to provide feedback in a good way, think about how to make it about the event and think about doing it timely. And with that, I hope this video was useful for you and gave you courage to try to provide some feedback to someone. It doesn't always have to be your team. It could be your peer, and guess what? Even your boss. That's something that we should all learn to do better, shouldn't we? With that said, I'm Simona Pappalardo, and I'm a leadership coach who helps overworked and overwhelmed managers become authentic and confident leaders who create success for themselves, their teams, and their organization at large. Talk to you soon. Bye.